Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is the founder of the marketing company Iron Age Marketing, a Substack newsletter writer, a writer for Perfect Spiral Capital's website, a musician, and an audio engineer. His name is Nick Pecone, or Nicky P, and here's my interview with Nick. Nick Pecone, welcome to Apollo Papyrus.
Thank you. I'm welcomed.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
I'm Nick Pecone, or Nicky P as I usually go by. I am a marketer working to grow my audience within the, say, independent author space, trying to help people that usually feel very alone and very like, why do I have to learn 10 new jobs, to help find their audience and their following and, get their books out to the people they want to get them out to.
Okay, as you said, you run the marketing company, Iron Age Marketing. Now, what types of marketing services does Iron Age Marketing provide? And does Iron Age just provide marketing services for independent authors, or are there other types of clients that your company provides marketing services to?
Well, honestly, it's a new company, so I provide marketing services to whoever needs marketing services. But my ultimate goal is to try and foster more of the art that I like in the world and help creators put more of it out. So like my end goal is to build an audience enough that I can spend most of my time working specifically with authors. As far as services go, we do a number of things. Like as far as like I can build website builds. I'm a 25-year veteran of an audio technician, so podcasting is something I'm very knowledgeable about, as well as picked up video editing along the way. So I spend a lot of time with that. One of the things I like to do the most is I do offer a free hour-long consultation where we sit there and I listen to people tell me about what they're doing as far as their current marketing game. And then we try and find ways at no cost that they can make their marketing dollar go farther, so to speak. One of the things I always bring up is, when you go on a podcast, a lot of creatives, authors, whoever you're talking about specifically, they'll go on, they'll do the podcast, and then the podcast promoter is going to maybe put one or two mentions of it out into the ether, as far as, a Twitter, one Twitter or Facebook post saying, hey, I had this guest on this week. And for creatives, there's a whole host of other things that they could be doing. Generally speaking, if like I feel the podcast I was on was under promoted, I'll actually go download the podcast off of YouTube and I'll cut my own clips out of the podcast. Because each one of those clips, now the podcast is typically not going to go out of their way to do a whole bunch of extra work, but if I can make the work easy for them, tag them in every clip that I make, it helps me kind of nudge them in a way of helping me or, working with my creative clients to help them leverage the audience of the podcaster that they were on. And that's just one way in which we can, for no money at all, go and actually build a brand, build an audience with other people's audiences.
You've written a Substack newsletter called The Questions We No Longer Ask. Now, I understand you haven't written too many articles for it in the past several months, but what types of articles have you written for your Substack newsletter?
Well, I actually have two Substack newsletters. That's when I started maybe 2 years ago, as far as just trying to get some of the feelings I was dealing at when I first started going freelance. But I also do have the Iron Age Marketing newsletter, where I do try and tackle more content, more specifically directed at the like at creatives as far as their marketing game goes. My primary output, honestly, for creatives is the Iron Age Marketing podcast, where I talk specifically about the topics. More often than not, I do tend to deviate from this to get different ideas to help facilitate with authors, but I primarily talk to authors about what they're doing, what they see work, what they see doesn't work, and it's a way to promote authors, and it's a way to see, where the state of things is. Um, well, the reason I chose the Iron Age is it's a term that's out there specifically talking about the modern state of publishing. I know marketers that actually publish in the big game with like the big five, and it's really hard. And the bottom line is, no matter if you go with a corporate company as far as publishing goes, everyone's getting hemmed in. Like you can't say the things that you want to say. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at on the political spectrum. And I want people to be able to put out and find the audience that's theirs, not have to, sit back and do what somebody else in some office who has no real care other than what money you can generate for them thinks you should be putting out.
You've also written articles, I think, for Perfect Spiral Capital's website. Is that correct?
I have also written some articles for Perfect Spiral Capital. It's a client and a long-term time friend of mine.
Okay, now, what is Perfect Spiral Capital and what content do you write for their website?
In generally speaking, I write whatever I'm asked to write for my friend Luke. He usually tries to give me the longer, more creative things. I've written a couple articles about different things. One of which is like the 8 forms of capital, where I kind of talk about generally when you use the word capital, people think of money, but you have a lot of other things that you can offer and a lot of other ways in which you can be wealthy in life. Good friendships, people that trust and rely on you, people that'll do, things for you because they trust and rely on you. If you have a lot of skills and expertise and things, there's different ways in which you can be wealthy that people don't tend to think about. And so that was one of the articles I wrote for him. I've written another article on like the reticular activating system, which is a basically I joke about it. It's the secret behind the secret, but it's the idea that if you have something in your head, you start to see things that relate to it more and more. So if you're thinking, oh, you know, when you're looking for a car and you have a car in mind of what you want, you start seeing that car everywhere around town. Well, for him, it's the creative ideas that people use to make money. But for me, it's about the creative ways that people can use to leverage the world around them to build their audience, to find that next creative idea, be it for the writing itself or being for how they're going to get that writing in the hands of other people. Like the big thing is we have really creative people that when they hear the word marketing and they think about, well, how do I go out and find people? They clam up. They're not used to thinking about it that way. But if you can get their brain cycling and being creative in ways like that, you'd be really surprised how easily you can reach more people than you're currently reaching with just, a novel idea and a little elbow grease and like going over the pattern every week.
What is your work as a musician and an audio engineer like?
Uh, well, it was a lot bigger before or a lot more about 3 years ago, and then a lot of it stopped. Um, I've been a performing musician for over 25 years. Generally speaking, I've just gone out and done bar covers and things like that and worked my way like that. Um, I think I'm up to like 28 or 29 bands that I've been in over the course of my life, various genres. If you go to gowiththrowrecords.com, you can see all of the albums that I've released over the years with various projects. Currently, I released music with a band called Puma Thurman. We're very adventure rock is what we're called. It's somewhere like between punk and rock, little little heavier sometimes, but we mostly just talk about movies. So most of our songs are, narratives from actual like movies that have been put out. One of my favorites is actually just a retelling of the story from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Have you thought about writing a book? And if so, what subject matter might you write a book about?
I actually am currently working on a book with my friend Daniel over at Whimsyland. Uh, I'm working the book I'm working on. I mean, I've always wanted to kind of be an author, I guess, but there's so many other people that are out there doing it better that I feel like it's the best place that I could put my mark in that world is to just talk marketing, and specifically the kind of people like I'm after, the more nerdier crowd. And so I'm actually working on a book right now called The Role Player's Guide to Marketing and how to be better at life in general. The premise behind it is I want to put the realm of marketing into something that like people like me can understand, because I've never been the leading man type. We'll just put it that way. So I played Dungeons and Dragons my whole life and kind of came up in that world. And there's a lot of ways in which marketing it's just building relationships. It's going out and finding creative ways to interact with people. Which, as I know, anyone who's ever played Dungeons and Dragons usually is not the most forthright person when it comes to going out and trying to make new friends. But ultimately, that is what marketing is, and we can kind of make a game out of it, so to speak.
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I am familiar with the concept of an alignment chart. So
Okay.
I do have a bit of a familiarity with one aspect of Dungeons
Hmm.
and Dragons, even though I'm not really totally familiar with it.
Well, I'm an old guy. That's what that amounts to.
When you talk about the Iron Age of media, as your company's called Iron Age Marketing, what do you mean by the Iron Age of media?
I think the guy who actually coined Iron Age of Media is a guy called Razor Fist. He's a YouTuber. But the idea, you have all these splinter groups that have kind of popped up in the past couple of years. So many of them that are politically motivated, where it's like conservatives splitting off to kind of promote their thing, sequestered off from the rest of the world, right or left wingers kind of doing the same thing. And to me, the Iron Age isn't really a thing so much as a time. This isn't like the Silver Age or Golden Age of comics anymore. We're in the Iron Age. And the beauty of the Iron Age is that we're maybe taking a step back from all the flash and the glitz and the glamour of, let's say, like the 80s and 90s, creation, lots of money, promoting Stephen King books and things like that. And we're taking the tools back into the artist's hands, where things might be maybe a little more primitive, but they're putting all of the control back into the sphere of the artist. You know, the one fun thing that's fun about it, so much fun, honestly, is the fact that because it is such a new way of doing things, with the Kindle publishing market, KDP and ACX, the options that we have to kind of do whatever we want it is, and maybe start rebuilding a new ecosystem for writers from scratch. It's just, to me, super interesting and super fun to kind of be a part of. It's like, how many of the writers that are putting out things on their own now are going to be able to stick it out and build those audiences where maybe they are the next Stephen King, they're the next Clive Barker, they're going to be the people that we're basing movies off of their books in the future.
What is your best marketing advice for authors, whether they go with your company or have another marketing strategy altogether?
I mean, honestly, the thing to remember, and I think a lot of people tend to forget this, is what marketing is it's relationship building. And the reason I want people to focus on that is because when you go out there, it's the friends that you make, the other writers that you make, it's the relationships that you're building that you're going to be able to leverage into meeting new people or new readers in the future. um, Examples of people that have kind of taken advantage of readers. You have George R. R. Martin, who consistently refuses to finish the book series that he started. He'd rather, don't get me wrong, he wants to go make money. I understand. But, there's new authors that like they'll put out a new series that people will never start because they're terrified that, oh, if I start this and the author never finishes it. And that is not the way you want to treat your readers. That's not how you foster a good relationship with people. And I think honestly, not that he cares, he's an 80-year-old man, but he doesn't have the relationship that he used to have with his audience now. You know, the other thing is a lot of people tend to get drawn into the drama that sometimes comes with, oh, so and so did this, so and so did that. You'll even hear like the term monetize your haters sometimes. And yeah, sometimes you'll get some short-term gains out of it, being able to, hey, do this because that guy sucks. But the bottom line is that the more enemies that you're out there making, especially out of other creatives, in the long run, all it does is make you look like a dick and doesn't really help you move the needle. If you want to try and do the crabs in the bucket thing and hold each other down, well, you're wasting your time that you could be finding new audience trying to keep somebody else down, and that never works out well for anyone.
My final question is what is the single most leverageable form of content as we're in an era of society where we're overwhelmed with so much content in many different forms?
I mean, I hate to say it, but the bottom line is when we're trying to leverage content, um, video is king. So the quickest way that you can find some video to leverage, the easiest way I find to do that, honestly, is video podcasting. So if you're on a live stream, like say you're an author, you go on and you do an hour and a half long, 2 hour long live stream. You can generally pull probably 20 clips per hour of recording time in there of something that was said that can be turned into a short and put up on one of the respective platforms. Honestly, yeah, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube being the big ones. Now, not all of those is going to go viral, but every little bit, you'll start building up your audience doing that, start finding people, and all you have to do is do the podcast once, and then 40 pieces. That's you could put out a piece of content every day for a month based off of just that. So it's one time event that if you can cut it up pretty well. And honestly, there's AI tools that at least give you a good head start on like clip cutting out there now. So the best thing that you can do is go out there. Number one, you've built a relationship doing the podcast. Now, you also have the video content that you can create from doing that podcast. And I think like doing one podcast a month is pretty manageable for most people. Like you can find a way to squeeze one of those in. And then you've got content every day for a month to put out there and help every month it's a new audience that you can leverage with that.
Nick, thank you for appearing on Apollo Papyrus. You were a wonderful guest, and I will include a link to your podcast as well as some other links to your work in the text description of the episode.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me, Aaron.
If Nick decides to write a book at any point in the future, I wish him well on the endeavor. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write and read your passion. Bye for now. Remember to subscribe to the Apollo Papyrus YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@Apollo Papyrus and the Apollo Papyrus Substack newsletter at apollopapyrus.substack.com. Y'all can visit the Apollo Papyrus website at campaaronapollo.witsite.com/Apollo Papyrus and follow Apollo Papyrus on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Apollo Papyrus. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.